On the phone, we have Karli. She's known as Curious Karli on the World Wide Web and on YouTube, where she blogs about her travels in the western states, talking about your adventures. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I live on the road full time in my van. I have a Dodge van, and it kind of just happened that I wanted to go on an adventure by myself. I had seen a couple people online, and I just went out and started on the East Coast, and then ventured over to the West Coast, which I've pretty much been for the last 2 years. And along the way, I learned about YouTube and started my own channel and just have been educating people and sharing my little travel blog on the way.
What's driving you into doing this?
I think in some ways I just show some people a lifestyle that they are curious about or didn't know. A lot of people looking into tiny homes happen across van life and think, oh, well, there's a mobile tiny home. And then they look to YouTubers for how-tos and just what it looks like out here.
Right, so you're really a guide.
Yeah, more of a guide.
All right, so you also, in your blog, you interview a lot of people, and it's fascinating to hear other people's stories, too. What have you learned from people that you have interviewed that are living this same kind of lifestyle?
I've learned that you can live this way in multiple different vehicles, that it's kind of where there's a will, there's a way, and a lot of people just want to pare down their expenses. They want to get out of the corporate life. They want to live and experience some travels and whatnot before they retire. I'm very young in the group of friends that I'm in, and it is kind of a counterculture. We consider ourselves nomads. We consider ourselves part of a tribe, a community, and we gather during the winter times, and we just happen to hang out in the Arizona and California deserts because that's the best weather in the country. Some of us hang out in Florida, and then once the summer comes around, we're all over the country, and there's people planning on going to Alaska next year. When I interview people, it's to show my viewers that I may live in a van high top, but you can live in a Subaru, you can live in minivans and little cars, big rigs, just anything, and you can come from any lifestyle and be any age, just the diversity.
And you think that it's kind of tribal.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the Native Americans are the North American group that we kind of relate to, but other cultures have the same thing of nomadic people that just travel with the weather, they travel for food. We're kind of doing it for community and keeping our expenses down and just getting in touch with that traveling spirit in all of us. Like, I had the travel bug bite me when I was 18 years old, and I just kept wanting to get on a plane, go somewhere, go do something. And so when I happened across living in a van, I jumped on it all 100%, and I just haven't been able to shake it in the last 2.5 years. I don't know when I'll leave it.
So that filled the space that you were interested in moving into. Yeah, that's interesting. So in the short time that you've been doing it, have you noticed any changes in the sort of van culture, the tribe that you're in? Is it getting larger? Is it getting more organized? Is it changing in any ways that you can see?
It's kind of growing in some places, and it's kind of getting shut down in other places. So for us already being nomadic, we just move on to the next area. And the events that I've been going to, I just went to the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous for the 3rd time. It's a yearly event, and it's at about 8,000 people now. And I think it's one of the biggest events.
That's that's a very large gathering. That's not just a minor kind of get together. It's a major thing, and it's grown. What's transpiring? Is it all of economic nature? Is it an evolutionary nature?
It's economical, I think, is what it really boils down to. Is a lot of people out here want to stretch their dollar as far as they can while living a life that they enjoy, and the Riverfront Rendezvous is kind of targeted towards older people that have not going to get very much monthly out of their Social Security or whatever monthly payments they get. So if you only have $600 to live off of it, you can't even really afford an apartment with that amount of money.
That's
so
right.
living in a vehicle helps for that.
Right. So for the older people, now what about the younger people that are drawn to it? You were drawn to it because you have a wanderlust and you want to see places. How do you fund yourself? What do you do? Are you a hobo and a nomad?
Yes. Yeah, by definition, a hobo is a person that finds work wherever they go, and I do. I get seasonal jobs. I'm lining up a camp host job for this summer. I worked for the Conservation Corps a couple summers ago, and yeah, just picking up work here and there. We boondock a lot of the time, and that's why we've attached ourselves to the desert, is because there's the most amount of BLM land, which can stay up to 14 days, and then you just have to move 25 miles to the next patch of BLM land or national forest, and they camp. And in this, I have definitely gone parking lot to parking lot, and that is a very stressful life. Walmart parking lots are a huge haven for people that are nomadic because they usually don't care too much, and it's Walmart to Walmart if they'll let you stay. But if all else fails, I know I can go to a Walmart if I can't find BLM land.
You recently took a long trip to Cambodia, which is an extraordinary trip in itself. You didn't bring your van. You were on foot, by boat. You did a what? Tell me about your Indonesian trip. What inspired you to do it, and how did you live there? I mean, you weren't staying in the Hyatt or in luxury hotels or private resorts.
No, I wasn't. I went over there thinking I was going to be an English teacher to Cambodia, and right when I got there, I knew it wasn't the place for me, but I had a return flight 30 days later. So I only brought a small backpack that as a carry-on worth of things with me, and decided I had like one place booked for 2 nights, and it was a hostel that ended up being the worst hostel I stayed in, so that was a really bad beginning to my trip. But after that, I slowly started making friends at every hostel I went to, and I would just keep booking to the next place as I learned more about the country and asked people where they had been and good places they'd hang out. And I did end up attempting to teach an English class about halfway through my trip with a friend of mine that I'd met. And it was a really stressful experience. And I really at that point realized it wasn't for me to stay there. So I ended up trying to keep my expenses as low as possible, staying at really cheap hostels. They were $2, $4 a night, and then taking that return flight back home to the States.
I can't even imagine taking the chances and how brave you were in doing that.
I really scared myself a few times. I went over there because I'm stubborn, and I had it on my mind for a long enough time that I just needed to buy the plane ticket and do it. And I got over there, and I was well and over my head. It was still within my wheelhouse to figure out. If anything, it made me stronger to stay there that long and push through being in a third world country that's recovering from half of its population being murdered 40 years ago.
I think that's a remarkable trip for an American. Did you come back different from that?
I had a little bit of reverse culture shock. When I got back, I was standing in a Walmart parking lot with my mom, and I was looking around. I'm like, this is a Walmart parking lot, and it's so beautiful. Like, I was just like, there's no cracks in the pavement. There's nice cars around me, and I was kind of just flashing back to seeing, like, rubble and really bad streets that I was always walking on full of puddles and, like, scooters everywhere and tuk-tuks that looked ancient. So it was reverse culture shock for sure when I came back.
Right, but what did you get? So you came back from the trip, wiser and much more experienced, a little more savvy about things, but you came back different.
I think, yeah, I came back wanting to enjoy van life even more, and thankful that I was an American and that I'd grown up in this country and not having to deal with as much stress as they do over there. I guess my eyes are really open to what a third world country is actually like. Right.
So, and I also been reading a lot about the slab, and you've been there several times. What do you think about Well, let people know what has developed at this place called Slab City. What is it?
So Slab City is a little, it used to be an old army base outside of the town of Niland, California, close to Salton Sea. And it's an army base that was closed down several years ago, and they took everything down except for slabs of the foundations of the buildings. And so that's why it's nicknamed Slab City. People have come, and the squatters have come in and taken over the different slabs all over their little town and created compounds and different living quarters, and they stay there year-round. There's the core group of, I don't know, maybe 50 people or less that stay there year-round through the 130-degree summers, and those are the true slabbers. And then they have this community of music that happens all week long. Each, like the Viper Lounge, the Oasis, the Ponderosa, the Range, all have a night of the week, and kind of everybody comes and joins them for that night of music around a campfire or whatever it is. During the day, you can go tour East Jesus, which is the only registered museum in the county, and Salvation Mountain, which was
it's a national historic. Is it a national historic thing, or it's been recognized as a being a historic or a folk art thing?
Yeah, it's world renowned and recognized. Lots of music videos and movies have been filmed there. It's a very interesting town, and day to day, if you were just to drive in, it would seem very eerie, kind of creepy, unnerving. But once you kind of are with a group of people that are on the fringe of society anyways, we're kind of more accustomed to being around that group of people, so it's not as unnerving to us, but it could be to the average person.
Well, it's an unincorporated, they're unaffiliated, they're independent living. They require you have to bring everything that you need to live with you. There's no water, there's no electricity, there's nothing what you can create, and it seems like a very scary. Well, even everything you do, like living on the road, living in deserted, not abandoned government land, but basically uninhabitable places. Some uninhabited places, but it seems like it's a very scary proposition. I don't know how people do it. Or I don't know how you find the strength to not to be afraid of where you are. I mean, it would drive me crazy.
Well, the curiosity of it all just grabs me, and I want to go in, and other people are excited, and it's kind of an adventure, and we're not doing so much out here on the road. It's in our activities that we find. So going to Slab City is like an activity to go experience.
So
another culture.
So you wouldn't live there, but you would visit. You visit, like in the wintertime, it's a good place to visit.
Yeah, I would never live there, mainly because of the temperatures rising so quickly. I mean, probably by the end of next month, it'll be too hot for the nomads that I know to be there, but the slabbers, it'll be just fine.
So, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, it's sort of, I'm looking at is my dad lives in New England, and in the winter he goes to Florida, but they call him a snowbird.
Yes.
Right, but
yes.
Slab City is a not a, I don't want to say a poor man's snowbird trip, but something similar. Like a lot of people go there in the winter and they leave in the summer. They go north to more temperate climates in the summer.
Yeah, I guess we could be considered snowbirds, but I've always thought of snowbirds as retired people who have a nice Class A, and they go down to Arizona for 6 months, and the other 6 months they're in their house near their family.
Well, it sounds
and or they work.
It sounds nomadic, but it does sound nomadic.
Yeah, it's extremely nomadic, but there's different little, I guess, labels for our individual niches of being nomadic. I consider myself a van lifer because I live in a van, but it's also like my grandparents are snowbirders, and they go work in Texas for half the year, and the other half the year they're in Montana at their house.
You're right. So what other I also noticed recently that I haven't seen before. I mean, I've just been kind of observing this stuff for, off and on for a while. There are more. I would see a lot of individuals, and they would run into other individuals, and there were the sense of community that I saw online was few and far between. Your rubber tire, your rubber,
Rubber Tramp Rendezvous.
The Rubber Tramp Rendezvous was a place where people got together. But now there seems to be a move towards, and I've seen this in Europe for years and years, of caravans. Is that something, kind of a new movement in your tribes of nomadic vehicle people? Is the caravans? Is that something new that's happening? Is that something that's growing?
The idea of caravans, I think, has always been there, but we just didn't call it such. Because
right.
A caravan is just two or more people driving together and camping together, who may or may not have known each other beforehand. So caravans this year became more of a thing because Bob Wells, who puts on the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, had such an overwhelming group of people who wanted something to do before and after the event. And so he created these caravans so that people could go and travel together outside of the event. And it's been really good. And you can caravan with someone for a couple days or for a few months or for a year. It's completely up to whatever the caravan is into.
But is that something that, in as far as the short time that you've been doing this van touring and nomadic lifestyle, is that something that's has the potential to grow and be a more integral part of it?
Yeah, I definitely think so. When I first started on the road, I had seen a couple people online, and I didn't think of ever, camping with them. I thought of maybe seeing them one time in a parking lot and, then moving on with my adventure. But once I went to the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous, I realized, I can now have friends and we can go camp together, and that forming that community in our tribe has definitely grown, and having online forums and Facebook to really be a center for communication so that we can find each other and ask questions.
Right. And meeting fosters that sense of community that you've built online.
Yes.
Yeah, it's what you're doing is very cool. How long, do you see an end to it, or do you see an evolution of what you're doing?
I definitely see an evolution. I don't want there to be an end to being nomadic. I'm just going to see where this leads me, because I like having the spontaneity of it.
Right. I've watched you for a while. I'm not watching every day or anything but I've seen and you seem to be much more organized about what you're about. And that's encouraging, because I think that sure is your survival doing it. Your website is, or I don't even know if it's a website, but your YouTube page is very well organized. You're very well organized in what you want to say, and you're also doing you write. Is anything published or if people want? Do you have a book or anything like that you're working on?
Yes and no. I don't have anything published, just the YouTube channel for now. But we'll see how what this year brings, because I'm looking into it.
Yeah, as you take it more seriously. I wish you much luck in your travels. Is there anywhere you want to go that you haven't been, or is there any high points of your travels besides what we've talked about? That people would like to know about or might be interested in hearing about?
Places I'd like to go, I didn't plan on it, but I have hit, I think, 34 states, and I just have to hit the middle of the country.
Wow.
And I was thinking about get finishing off those last few states, maybe this year or next year. And yeah, I guess it's been really fun touring the country and seeing like the little hidden corners, little towns that you would have never thought to stop in. And I've done a little bit of hot spring, finding hot springs along the way, and those really brighten up the trip.
So out of the 34 states that you've been in, what are like two of the highlights?
I'd have to probably say 2 national parks, because I just adore national parks, and Acadia is one of them, and the other one would have to be Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed those 2, but I've been to several national parks and monuments, and they all are amazing.
So Acadia, is that in Maine?
Yes, it's in Maine.
So and Joshua Tree is in Southern California, Northern Arizona. Is that right?
Yeah, it's in Southern California. It's about an hour from where I am right now.
So you totally across the country. You're in with those two. You're it's coast to coast. Curious Karli, and let people know where they can find you, because they're not going to find you on the road, because I don't think anybody can keep up with you, but they can find you on various places like YouTube, and I'm not familiar with the other stuff. You've got a lot of stuff under your name, but I don't know what that is. You know.
Yeah, Curious Karli is on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube move I do have a blog, and I'm working on a website, and that'll be under Curious Karli as well.
And the best place to find, if someone just typed in Curious Karli, they'll find you wherever you are. There aren't any others.
Nope, I'm one of a kind. Yeah, the first 4 things that'll pop up.
Is that am I right?
It's Curious and then Karli.
The thing I like most about your sense of adventure is the interviews that you do with other people that are doing it. They're very well done. You have a sensitivity that people open up to you and they share things that are, I think, important. And I think you're a journalist is what I really think. But anyway, Karli, thank you so much for talking to me, and good luck to you in your travels. I wish you much good luck and safe travels.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh, honey, though our friendship ceases from now on. Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh, honey, though our friendship ceases from now on. Talk at all is my advice.